Hello and welcome to another episode of the Preconceived podcast. This is the podcast that aims to improve your life by improving your thinking. And I don't know about you, but as I sit here today, I'm pretty happy. I'm looking out the window right now and it is 61 degrees, which is like the warmest it's been in a long, long time. This podcast, however, is obviously not about the weather. I'm sure there's other podcasts that are specifically focused around that, but I wanted to talk about something that we recently just did at our youth group. For those of you who don't know, I'm a youth pastor at Elevate Youth Group in Poughkeepsie, and we just had an event called The Climb. Now, the cool thing about this event was that we had a lot of students coming together. We had an obstacle course and some different examples and stuff, but what we were focused on was climbing. And before we did this, I did some research because I wanted to know what climbing was all about. I mean, climbing sounds pretty dangerous. If we think about climbing up a rock face, or if any of us have fallen out of a tree, which probably isn't many of us now that I think about it, but for those of us who have ever gotten hurt climbing, it seems like something pretty dangerous. But did you know that there are twice as many people killed in the United States every year by farm animals as opposed to rock climbing? That seems kind of strange that it would be more dangerous to go to a petting zoo than it would be to go climb up a rock face, which, we can debate whether that's true or not, but the statistics are there. I think it was 72 people last year killed by farm animals, 36 climbing. Those farm animals might include some horses, but if you're looking for some danger and adventure this weekend, forget climbing up the mountain. Go cow tipping. Don't go cow tipping. What we're talking about is the climb of life. There's a lot of times where we feel like we're going through situations that are very difficult. Sometimes we're going through situations that seem hard but not so difficult. And that's because every climb is not created equally. Some climbs look like this. This is the New York Yankees in spring training, climbing up a hill, running up and down. And then there's climbs like this, which is like facing the elements and going after and climbing. All climbs are different and there's different climbs in our life, but it's very important for us to understand the season of life that we're in, to understand what we're going through, to understand the challenges that we face. It's important for us to understand when we're in a season where we have to push through and sometimes where we need to pull back. Because if we're in the middle of a season that seems very difficult, it might be that we need to persevere in it, that we need to keep going, that we need to push through it, that we need to make sure not to cut the journey short. Sometimes we like to do that. We get distracted. We put our eyes and our attention on different things because we don't want to focus on what we're going through. But sometimes in that moment, that's exactly the place where we're meant to stay and to exist to be able to grow out of it. For me, I think that if we're going to go through it, we may as well grow through it. If we're going to go through the challenge and we're going to go through the difficult times, we may as well see the end result that's going to be us growing stronger. Because growth does not come without some discomfort, which once again is when it's important to identify the season that we're going through. Because not all climbs are equal, not all situations are equal. But God promises in every situation, in every challenge, to bring good out of it if we would allow Him to be a part of it. So the main verse that we looked at during the climb, during this event, was Romans chapter 5, verse 3. And it talks about how when we go through difficult times, that it produces endurance inside of us. It produces character inside of us, and it produces hope inside of us. And those three things are so important to look at when we're going through the climb. Even if it's just a little baby hill, or if it's the gigantic mountain, going through the situation, understanding that we're going to have endurance coming out of it, that we're going to have character that's built inside of us, and that we're going to have hope coming out of it is incredible. Because it's not just hope for us. Hope is very important. We need hope to know that there's something better. But the people around us that are going through difficult times, they need hope as well. We need to be able to show them, listen, I went through this tough time. I went through this struggle, but I made it through. And because of that, there's hope for you too. You can see the example. But the way that we do this most effectively, the way that we do this, the way that we actually see growth in these situations is found in something else that I looked at when I was researching about climbing. And that is the number one most important thing that I kept seeing over and over and over again was vision. It's where we're focused on. It's what we're thinking about. If we're in those situations looking simply at the difficulty, looking simply at the pain, we're not looking at where we are in that moment and where we need to go. So when I was doing the research on the importance of vision in climbing, I came across this example, and it's based off of a documentary that I saw just recently, and it's pretty famous actually. And the movie or the documentary is called Free Solo. Now, what this guy is able to accomplish in this movie, if you were to ask me beforehand, I would tell you it was impossible. I would tell you it was absolutely crazy to even attempt it. But what this guy did was, and his name was Alex Honnold, and you can Google him, he's all over the place now, is that he climbed 3,000 feet on a rock face, 3,000 feet tall, which is absolutely crazy. I mean, if you look, I'll put this graphic up, in comparison to some of the tallest buildings in the world, this is what he climbed. It's called El Capitan, and it's in Yosemite in California. Now, this rock face is huge. It's more than twice the size of the Empire State Building. So next time you're in New York City, I encourage you, go to the bottom and look straight up at it and imagine climbing it. And then add another Empire State Building on top of it, and that is the height that this guy climbed. Absolutely insane. I know a lot of people that would feel uncomfortable if they were inside the Empire State Building looking down, no less actually climbing up that height by themselves. Now, this in and of itself is pretty awesome. It might be, documentary worthy just to see somebody climb this. But what this guy Alex did was that he climbed it without any ropes, without any connection to the mountain, without any anchors. It was him, the clothes on his back, some grippy shoes, a little chalk on his belt so he can get some grip. And that's all he used to climb 3,000 feet. Absolutely insane. And I highly recommend this documentary. I'll warn you, there's a couple of swear words, one in the beginning, but overall, it's an amazing documentary just seeing what he was able to accomplish. Now, the thing that stuck out to me, really, besides the fact that he's crazy, besides the fact that this was an incredible feat instead of the strength, really, and there's a lot of things we could take from this, the thing that stuck out the most, though, was the vision that he needed in that moment. Every single moment climbing up that rock face. Because people, when I see them, they're rock climbing, they're flying up the mountain, they're looking ahead, they're choosing a path, they're able to kind of focus on different things. But for him, because in that moment, all that was attached to the mountain were his hands and his feet, he needed to be focused on where he was in the moment at all times. Because if he didn't, the consequences were not, a couple scrapes, a couple of bruises. It was death. If he did not do it perfectly, he was going to die, and that's not an exaggeration. So for me, that's absolutely crazy. He was able to stay in the moment while doing this climb. He was able to stay in the moment wherever he was, whatever he was doing, step by step, handhold by handhold. Now, for us in life, it's very difficult for us to stay in the moment. It's very difficult for us to stay in the middle of the difficulty because all we want to do is escape. All we want to do is get out of it. All we want to do is get away from the discomfort. But we have to be willing to stay in the moment, to experience what's going on around us, to be able to see clearly what we're doing, and to be able to take in what's going on around us. I think this speaks to me so much personally, just because for me, it's so hard to stay in the moment. It's so hard for me to be able to focus on what's in front of me because I'm always thinking about what's coming next, what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to try to achieve next. I'm always thinking about the next thing instead of realizing that in this moment, in this time, there are so many incredible things that I could be focusing on. I have 2 young children. I have a 7-month-old and I have a little boy who's almost 2 years old now. So for me, it's really easy sometimes to think about what's it going to be like when they grow up and what are we going to do together, and we're going to play baseball and my daughter's going to grow up and I'm going to have to kill a bunch of guys for it. I'm thinking about the future instead of understanding that right now is such a valuable time. Thinking about where we are in our careers, in ministry, just in our families and in school, wherever it is. Stopping to enjoy the moment that we're in, even if it's difficult, and allowing ourselves to find the growth that comes through the discomfort. And I can only imagine at the end of this climb that Alex went through, when he finally made it to the top of the mountain, to see the view that was up there, knowing that he had just gone through such a difficult time. But there wasn't something that he went through fearfully, I don't think. I think he looked at it as an opportunity for growth. How many seasons in our lives are we able to stop and to recognize as an opportunity for growth? How many times are we able to stay in the moment, to find quiet times in our lives, to turn off the music in the car, to have a conversation with our family, to spend that time, that quality time with God? so that he can start to show us some of the amazing things that are in front of us. Some of the challenges, yes, but maybe what's on the other side of the challenges, starting to show us where we can focus right now where we are, so that he can show us that once we get to the top, there's an amazing view, there's an amazing growth that's coming out of it. It's so important that we allow ourselves to stay in the moment, to stay focused, and to not try to find the exits when we're meant to stay in the middle of the journey that we're on. So I hope that you got a lot out of this today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'd just like to ask you to comment below, hit the subscribe button. It's a huge help if you would. We're working on some different things within the Preconceived podcast, some different features that we want to do. So I would encourage you to follow us on Instagram, to follow us on Facebook, to follow us on Twitter even. We're of course here on YouTube, on iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. But any kind of comments or feedback you want to leave us would be awesome and greatly appreciated. I pray you have an awesome week and that your life is being improved by your improvement in your thinking. Have a great week.